Well, hello, everybody. Thank you all so much for being here today. We are going to go ahead and get started just because it's a minute after the hour. Thanks for giving us a little bit of time on your St. Patrick's Day morning. We're so happy to be here with you. My name is Janelle McCreary, and I am a certified financial planner with Curi Capital. And with me is Sarah Ward. Sarah, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi everybody. Thanks for joining. I am a lead advisor on the Wealth Builder team here at Curi Capital. I have been in the industry for about 10 years, but I'm really excited to be here, representing Curi today, talking about this advice that we're going to go through today is really kind of near and dear to my heart. So really excited to get started.
Absolutely. And it's a fun topic, so we like that. Um,
Yeah.
so the topic for today is helping our parents who are obviously older than us, and that's a little bit tricky to navigate. My parents are baby boomers, and so they're a little bit opinionated just by nature. So it's good to help our parents and help them understand what's going to be helpful to us when we're trying to prepare them for a financial disaster that they will not anticipate whatsoever. So we're excited to be here and to have that as a topic today. Um,
Absolutely. So, some of the topics that we're going to move through today. So, why that proactive planning matters before we get to that crisis, the things that we can do ahead of time, navigating some of those conversations that might be a little more difficult or sensitive, reviewing key documents and other information that it's really helpful to talk through ahead of time, clarifying wishes. So, making sure that we know what our parents want, we have the best ability to be able to fulfill those for them, and then also coordinating planning. So, who do we need to loop into this just beyond our parents and how we can do that together?
Thank you so much. So often the question that comes up is, well, what do I do? How do I help my parents? There's a few easy steps that you can take right away. Um, when I'm meeting with clients, I often tell them, okay, do yourself a solid. And if you're sitting on the couch on a Friday night watching Netflix or something, go through and just check your beneficiaries on your bank accounts. Just go through and make sure that you have beneficiaries, that they're accurate, that they look good on every single account you have. So that can likewise be transferred over to your parents. Often parents, or I will find with folks, they have accounts in many different places. Sometimes, 7, 8 different bank accounts, some with $30, some with, thousands of dollars. It really doesn't matter, but it does create a bit of a mess for a child or someone who's trying to help them navigate that financial stuff. So why is this important? If when a health emergency happens, my mom is 80 and she will fall all the time. She's not feeble or something, but she will just fall, and at some point she's going to fall, and it may cause her to have to be incapacitated or something. So what's important for that? What can we do to prepare for that? And then a sadder one is the cognitive decline as your parents start to kind of lose it a little bit. Sudden financial issues, if your parents travel or if something comes up where they don't understand what's happening, or unfortunately, we see it a lot where fraud happens and seniors are targets of fraud. So all of these things can be really overwhelming. And that's why it's important for us to make sure that this planning happens before a crisis occurs. So why? So it's great if you have a power of attorney. If your parents went and spoke with an estate planning attorney and got a power of attorney form in place, great. But has that been filed anywhere? Do you know who the power of attorney is? Is it a sibling or is it you? Who is the power of attorney? Is it someone that your parents currently are in good favor with? So all of those are important things to know, to understand, so that when something happens, there's no questions. Like everyone knows, okay, it's Becky. Becky's in charge. And she is already on file with the bank. They already have the power of attorney form. That's all filed, ready to go. Likewise, do we have passwords for where does mom pay her bills from? Do we know where she pays her stuff from, or do we have to go write a check? A lot of older folks like to write a check. So we need to make sure that we understand how your parents are paying their bills. Because if we don't do that until the moment is upon us, it's like you're trying to care for your parent who's in the hospital or whatever. And instead, you're having to scramble to deal with all this financial stuff. And that's not where you want to, that's not where you want your head to be at. So you need to really make sure that first you understand who is in charge, if your parents have even done any of that. And if they haven't, that's a bigger conversation. Like that needs to happen. That needs to be a big priority. Make sure that you understand their wishes so that you can execute them accordingly. I encourage clients all the time to just if you don't want to be revived, or if you don't want life-saving care, if you don't want to be put on a respirator, you need to let your kids know that so that they're not fighting with each other or with your husband or with whoever. Take that pressure off of your family members. If you have those conversations ahead of time, it just takes a ton of stress off of the family, so that instead of worrying about paying your internet bill, you can worry about actually caring for your parent. Sarah, anything you want to add there?
Yeah, those are all really great points to know. I think, having these conversations ahead of time helps clear a lot of stuff up. It reminds me of a story that one of our colleagues told actually at a client event we had where there was four daughters and their mom had passed away and they all at one point had been promised mom's ring. There was lots of money involved, but they nobody cared about the money. They all wanted that ring and it caused a lot of conflict. So having this kind of laid out ahead of time, like you said, understanding parents' wishes is really helpful to just everybody's on the same page. It's all spelled out. They can't really argue with, the youngest was going to get it or whatever. So yeah, awesome.
Absolutely. Love that. And we see that so often. And we definitely see that a death of a parent or grandparent can really bring out the best and the worst in family members. Any emotion or feeling that was there ahead of time is just going to be amplified by 10 times at least when those emotions are running hot. So if you can handle those things when everybody has a cool head, it just makes things so much easier. Okay,
Yeah,
great.
absolutely. So as we get into having these conversations, how to start these conversations, if you haven't talked to your parents about these, they might be hard to bring up. There's a number of reasons why this might be difficult. There's a lot of emotion around aging and independence. And I know, like with my dad, especially when we have some of these conversations, he sometimes feels like maybe I'm trying to take away that independence too early or prematurely, kind of applying that to him. So it is something that we need to navigate really carefully. There's also our fear as the children or the supporter. This might be an aunt or uncle or a grandparent. It's not just parents, but somebody that you are caring for. That fear of overstepping or being nosy, maybe feeling or being seen to be greedy when really that's not how we're coming into this conversation. Maybe it's not why it's on our mind. There's also some other money issues or scripts that we call them that can stem from a lot of different sources. Some parents might feel shameful of the amount of money that they have. Maybe they feel like they don't have enough. They don't want their kids to know how well off they are or not well off. There may be some anxiety around that money. I met with a family recently who was moving into assisted living, and the conversation I was nervous about, but it was how long will my money last before the kids have to pay? And they were very, very happy coming out of that conversation just to have some of those answers. And then even some cultural norms. So in some cultures, talking about money with somebody who is not your spouse, so and literally any other family member, is going to be really uncomfortable because that is maybe not done. So that might be something that needs to be overcome or recognized on both sides to work around as well. So some additional tips for starting that conversation. So choosing the right moment. You want it to be a quiet moment where maybe, depending on your family, you might be in public at a quiet dinner, or it could be at home, like choosing that right setting for everybody to feel really comfortable. Using I statements. So we do this in order to minimize defensiveness. So you're not saying you are not handling your bills well. It might be, hey, I bring this up because I've noticed, or it's been on my mind recently. This really worries me. I want to make sure that we have these conversations ahead of time. Sharing your intentions. So making sure, I want to make sure that your wishes are honored. I'm doing this out of care for you, not because I'm after your money. I want to know how much there is so I can go to Vegas. Not the case. And
Absolutely.
asking permission, is this okay if we discuss this? Is it a good time? I want to better support you. What's the best time for you? Because I do want to have this conversation. Starting with some broader questions, who would help you? Where are the documents? We'll talk about those documents here shortly. And then, do you have any preferences or concerns about? So these are some things you can do just to get the general conversation started. It is probably going to be ongoing conversations. We're not going to sit down over dinner, talk about it for an hour, and then it'll be done. The reality is there's a lot of decisions to be made, and your parent or, whoever you're caring for might change their mind too. So just because they say one thing today doesn't mean in a few weeks when they've really thought about it harder, it might be completely different. So being open-minded and be able to go with that flow is important too. The key messages we want to get across is we want to preserve their independence however we can by supporting them, reducing stress for everybody in those emergencies. Actually, one of my colleagues in this office told me the other day that when her dad passed away, despite she was on vacation, having the name and the location of the hotel on the fridge, nobody knew where to find her because her mom in that moment just could not think for herself. She was just so overwhelmed. Honoring wishes, protecting assets, preventing conflict. We've already talked through a lot of those. And then really that proactive planning as an act of care, not of greed or nosiness or, trying to put them in a nursing home before their time. It really is an act of care.
I love that. Sarah, that's great. Thank you.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go over a few key documents. I'm sure that you've heard likely of most of these. A will is important, but it's really not sufficient. A will just states what your assets are and what your wishes are for those assets. If you have a will and that's it, there are concerns about that. Your loved one will have to go to probate if their assets are over a certain dollar amount. So if they have a house and they have a will and nothing else, you will have to go to probate, and that costs a lot of money. It takes a lot of time, a lot of lawyer fees. Attorneys love probate. They make a ton of money off of it. So important to understand that a will is not sufficient. It's nice to have, it's not sufficient. Power of attorney. There's a couple different kinds of power of attorney. There's the financial power of attorney, which says, your attorney can organize it so that there are springing powers of attorney where, hey, if my mom is out of the country, I can act as her power of attorney so that I can write a check. There's that, or she's incapacitated and this is more permanent. Powers of attorney do not go into effect until a certain point that is indicated in that document. So if your parents fill out a power of attorney, they should fill out a power of attorney. But what I'm saying is that they don't feel like that's them handing over the car keys and that that's like, here, I'm done. Here's the checkbook. I'm handing this over to you. No, this is like a future thing. What's important, there is a lot of things that are important about financial power of attorney. You may think that your ducks are in a row because you have this document that your attorney drafted for your parents, but it's not. You have to go into their different financial institutions, into the bank with your parent, whoever that person is. So if I'm the executor or the named power of attorney for my parent, I need to go into that financial institution with my parent or parents, and we need to check with the bank, make sure that that's sufficient, file it with the bank. oftentimes what we find is that financial institutions will not accept just what the attorney has drafted. They want their own forms, their own paperwork. They love to reject attorneys drafted power of attorneys or power of attorney forms. So just know that it's not enough to just have a power of attorney form. You just have to do this ahead of time. So when everybody's in a good headspace, you just got to do it ahead of time. So next time you're out visiting your parents, and again, this is not like a, hey, mom, I'm taking over. This is like a, if anything happens down the road, I can step in. It's at a future date. The document will clearly outline what that is. So your parent doesn't need to fear about that or feel a sense of infringement there. Very, very important. Additionally, powers of attorney are not in effect once your parent passes away. So if you were power of attorney for your mom while she was alive, she passes away, your power is over. You are no longer, you have no more power. So unless you're the beneficiary or unless you've been named as the executor by her trust document, you have no power. So just understand what the limitations are of each of the documents. Additionally, healthcare power of attorney. Now, this is a very important one, healthcare power of attorney. You need to understand it shouldn't always be like, oh, the oldest kid or, oh, the husband should make decisions for the wife, or, you need to understand the family nuances and who will have a clear head in a given situation. It may not be that the husband who is also in his 80s or 90s is going to be the best choice to make choices for his wife's care. So just understand, and they often encourage that those two people, unless there's only one child, unless it's a single child home, that those two people are different people. So to avoid conflicts of interest. So there would be a healthcare power of attorney would be one kid, the financial power would be another kid. That's a suggestion that attorneys often give. But healthcare powers of attorney is something you and I, all of us, should have, and it's very easy to have. You can get that done in a weekend for free. I encourage people, if I grew up in San Diego, there's a couple of different hospital systems that are big in San Diego. If you go onto Sharp or Scripps websites, you can get a power of attorney or a healthcare power of attorney form that outlines your wishes exactly. You can file it with those hospitals so that if you are in a car accident or something happens to you, it's filed with the hospital. It does no good if your parents have completed healthcare power of attorney forms and they're in a binder in your parents' closet or in a safe somewhere. That does no good, and no one will ever be able to get to it or understand what your parents' actual wishes were. So they have to be filed with the actual hospital ahead of time. So I would just encourage you. That's, again, one of those things where if you're sitting on your couch on a Friday night, it's really fun. I'm kidding, but I would encourage you to just make your wishes known with your spouse or with your loved ones. And then additionally, talk to your parents and make sure that you know what their wishes are so that you're not infringing upon their own personal wishes. If your parents don't want to be hooked up to a respirator, you need to know that. And you need to know that you're not just prolonging their life because you want it. You want to just make sure that you're fulfilling their wishes. Okay, so there's additionally a living will. It's important to name an executor. An executor is the person that will handle their assets after the fact. They administer the will. Guardians for minors. If any of you all have children, that's an important thing to note. If I were to pass away, I have a will. In my will, it outlines who my husband and I would like to care for our children. It's not automatically going to happen that way, but a judge would ultimately say, this is what their wishes were. Are these people fit to handle this? Are any of them in prison? Or on the Megan's Law website, okay, they're not, great, you can have these kids and take care of these kids. So just make sure that those wishes are known. Guys, none of this stuff is fun. It's not fun, but you have to do it. In the news, very, very frequently is we hear all the time like, oh, Prince died intestate, which means he died without a will, he died without trust documents. And so his family is just fighting like crazy. All these people are coming out of the woodworks like, oh, I'm his love child. I deserve this. Just do your best to make sure that things for your family are clean because they can be. They can be excellent, and very clean. And I've been doing this for about 25 years, and I have seen families who were solid before absolutely ripped apart when parents pass away. Like people that are best friends have become mortal enemies because of, like Sarah was saying, that ring that they wanted, or you know, uh, feeling like they were taken advantage of by their sibling. So just try to have these conversations ahead of time. Just it's imperative. You have to do it. Understand what specific gifts, like Sarah was mentioning, the rings, that is best handled like around the dinner table at Christmas, because if those four daughters had been in the room at the same time and mom was having that conversation, maybe that wouldn't have happened. You just have to be clear. So just make sure, when all the documents are done, the worst enemy is the safety deposit box. Make sure your parents do not have their documents in a safety deposit box. That is the worst place. Make sure that there's a digital version. Either their financial planner has them, you have them. They're not top secret. It's not a big deal. It's fine. But just make sure that you know where they are, that they're filed. Sorry, I'm rambling, but it's something I'm really passionate about. Okay, Sarah,
Yeah.
go.
That's all right. That actually leads into, I think we had safe deposit boxes on here. Some of the other important information just beyond those actual physical documents. Some of the other things, Janelle, if you want to talk about, what else do we need to have that conversation around? What should we be able to locate?
Yeah, absolutely. So for safety deposit boxes, for one, you can't just call up and say, hey, my mom is incapacitated. I need to get into her safety deposit box. They won't let you. They will not let you. So you would have to get a judge to allow you access to that thing. So just make sure that, again, you've handled that ahead of time. There's other options besides safety deposit boxes. Understand what documents your parents have, where they are, what they need, where their last tax return is. When my grandpa passed away, he was 104, and he was, of course, a hoarder because he was a depression baby. And it was a colossal nightmare to track down the 75 annuities that he had for $10,000. You know what I mean? Like, it was a mess. So it just try to deal with some of this stuff ahead of time, because filing a parent's tax return is a pain in the butt when they're in a hospital and you don't know where stuff is, and they can't speak to you and they don't know where it is either. So just try to do some of that stuff ahead of time. And I would encourage you, if at all possible, to make sure that you go with them to the attorney. If you're in a good enough relationship with your parents, if they trust you, make sure that they're not being taken advantage of. I've seen some really sad things where I make a joke about a cult church in the Midwest convincing some of my clients to sign over their house and all of their assets to the cult church at their passing. And if we hadn't figured that out, we would have been able to unwind that. But it's very, very common. It happens a lot. So just make sure that your parents are being taken care of and that they have beneficiaries. You know who they are. It's what your parents actually want.
Yeah, that's perfect. And I think having gone through this actually with my mother-in-law when she passed away, Janelle, that really resonates about knowing where everything is at, all of those different policies and accounts, and having a general list just so that you know what's out there and what's accounted for can be really, really helpful.
Yeah. And I like to stress with my parents, like, look, you can spend every cent you have. I don't care. But I just want to make sure that your wishes are fulfilled and that the government doesn't get it. Like that's all I want to do.
Yeah.
So
And that's a
just,
great segue to clarifying wishes. So
yeah.
some of those wishes can include, Janelle, you've already hit on the healthcare wishes. Do you want to be on a respirator? Do you want a do not resuscitate? Those sorts of things. Sometimes that even, end of life, we're talking about pain medication and things like that. They'll work through that with you, knowing how your parent wants to be cared for when that comes time, if there comes time. Long-term living arrangements. So talking about, do you want to stay in the home? Some older folks would like to move into a assisted living because they know they're going to have the support. Maybe they live far away from their kids. Maybe they don't have a close support network. So having that conversation ahead of time, like, hey, if you want to stay in your home, here's some things that we might have to do down the road. Some of those modifications to extend that independence. Maybe that means a first floor bedroom or things like that. Is the house set up for that? Or is there something we could do to keep you here longer if that's what you really want to do? Again, that end of life care legacy and memories you're going to miss when they're gone. If you're, like Janelle said, if you have a good relationship, you have a close relationship, you may miss some of those stories and those memories and being able to ask, even about a certain item around the house, where did this come from? What's the story behind it? So trying to record as much of that ahead of time. I know there's a lot of great services out there that can help you do that. Those are really cool. So thinking about that ahead of time because you will miss it when you don't have that opportunity anymore. Some daily routine support. If somebody needs help day to day, who do they want there? Not just who can be there, but who do they really want? Is that a son, a daughter, a neighbor? Who's their support network? Is there someone that maybe they can assist with a task that might be getting more difficult? If we're going to keep you in your home longer because that's what you want to do, maybe that means hiring somebody to do lawn care or basic maintenance or helping with cleaning and laundry and those sorts of things. Pet care, we talked about pets come up really, really frequently. Who do you want to take care of them? Being able to have them being taken care of ahead of time, but then ultimately, where does that pet go, after they pass or they're no longer able to take care of them? And again, coming back to those specific gifts or sentimental items, different assets. So I know we keep hammering on that story about the ring with the four daughters, but that was really, really important to them and it caused a lot of strife. So what do they want to share? What does your parent want to share with a specific person and knowing those ahead of time?
Love that. Love that. So common gaps, we've been over some of these. I've seen very frequently many accounts that don't have beneficiaries, that have ex-wives, that have ex-husbands, that have people that are passed away, outdated wills that are no longer even legally viable. Just make sure that there are just that things are current, that things are accurate, that things reflect your parents' wishes, and don't wait for a crisis. Sarah, anything you want to add?
How often do you think it's worth updating those things or reviewing those things together? I
At,
mean, I assume this isn't a one and done conversation.
yeah, at least every 5 years, but if they at any time anything significant changes. I have a client whose son just decided that he doesn't want to, he want no contact. And so, okay, it's time to update your will. Like, okay, unfortunately. So anytime some event happens, it could be that someone 10, 15 years ago was super trustworthy and great in their career and had a solid marriage or whatever. And now they are in a very different place. It's time to
Things
update
change.
things. Yeah.
Yep, that's a great point. To that end, we want to encourage not only coordination in this conversation between you and your parents, but also looping in their financial advisor, your financial advisor, estate lawyers, whether that's drafting or updating, as we've talked about, a tax professional. Are they filing their own taxes? Is there somebody they're using that helps them do that? And then also various family members. If there's more than one child, or you've got sometimes cousins or grandkids, lots of people involved, we want to again make sure everybody's on the same page. So really that ultimate goal is to ensure that the plan works together, that the will and the beneficiaries are aligned, because a lot of times we'll see that the will says, hey, I want all of this stuff left to, my kids, and maybe their actual beneficiary says something different or their percentages are mismatched, those sorts of things. reducing a duplication of effort. So, if you've got two siblings, they're each trying to do the same thing. We want to make sure that they're working in the same direction and not just overlapping. And then really understanding mom or dad's desires, aunt, uncle, grandparents, anything like that. So, and then ultimately, don't wait for a crisis. The whole point of today, start the conversation early, get out in front of it before something happens. And then you're in this panic moment trying to work through all of these decisions and you go 0 to 60. It's a lot easier to kind of do it slow and steady ahead of time.
Love that. Thank you, Sarah. Sarah, a couple questions have come in through the chat. One of them, what happens to debt after someone passes away?
That is an excellent question. So it depends on what the debt is. If your mom is the only one left and her husband or your dad is not with us anymore, that certain types of debt may be null and void. But frequently, those companies can come back through probate. There may be some claim, especially with like medical bills, those sorts of things. So I would figure out what types of debt those are and then do a little more research on what that really looks like. There are some, I don't know if you've gotten any offers from your credit union, Janelle, about life insurance to cover your like credit card there. There are some different options, not that I'm recommending that by any means, but each debt is a little bit different. So
Thank you. How do you pick an executor from your children? How do you compensate them?
that is a really good question too. And it's often a really, really hard decision. So it really depends family to family. You want somebody that, Janelle, you've put it really, really nicely, somebody that's going to have a clear head and be able to think through those decisions in a time of crisis. Um, Somebody that's able to look at it and you hope would act in the best interest of all of the family. Sometimes that's hard to tell ahead of time. Like you said, sometimes it brings out the best and the worst in people at the same time. So a lot of times I see an oldest kid. When my mother-in-law passed away, my husband, who's actually the youngest, was the executor for different reasons. His brother lives out of state, so wasn't really able to do that. His sister was going through a divorce, so there were some asset questions and things like that. So that really made him the default. So I would kind of work through some of those additional options and feel who you think is going to work in the best interest of everybody involved. And then
Love
as
that.
far as compensation, so they can be compensated as an executor. A lot of times that is built into the power of attorney, executor will, all of that stuff into the legal document that says that they can claim some as compensation, whether that's dollars or things like that. I don't see a lot of people do that, other than like, hey, I had to file the tax return and maybe that, I paid for that, so I want to get compensated for that, or, certain things like that.
Depending
But
on how messy it is, it can be a
yeah,
full-time job,
yes,
depending on how big of a deal it is.
absolutely. And that's a great point. If you are having to take time off of work, like recouping some of that pay, there are some different concerns there. So, but it's usually left up to kind of the executor's discretion to be able to be compensated for those things and be able to file it. But that can be contested if something, if you felt like the executor, if you are the other sibling, you can always ask to take a look at that as well and have a conversation there too. And that might be also a different conversation, a difficult one. So,
Yeah, absolutely. I do feel it's good to have an objective third party involved in those conversations. I feel like as a financial planner, if you're able to be the voice of objectivity or reason in the room and be the adult in the room and help sort things out, I feel like that adds a layer of peace.
yeah,
Um,
that's a great point.
okay, last question in the chat. How do we provide emotional support to our parents when these questions become overwhelming?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And that's really at the heart of what we're talking about today. So, ultimately, we know these conversations are hard. I would say giving them some space, having as many conversations as they need, and really asking them how can I support you? Is that helping you organize things? Is it, hey, well, we're going to table this today. Do we need to do some research? Those sorts of things. And really just being open to like they're probably feeling a lot of emotions too that they need to work through. It's a lot of decisions. They're facing, in a lot of cases, their own mortality, which nobody likes to do. It's a little bit morbid. So trying to put yourself in their shoes too. If this was you and you were talking to your kid, how would you feel? And try to give them some grace when you're having this conversation.
Love that. Okay, one other one popped up in the chat. My parents first had their will done several years ago in another state, but they no longer live in that state. How difficult is it to make a new will in their state?
I wouldn't say it's difficult. You do want to, each state's rules are different, each state's laws are different, so you definitely want to get that updated. You would want to work with an attorney in your state or one that is well versed with the laws in the state that they use now. There are some online services that are able to do that, but a local estate attorney will definitely know. I think it's worth definitely having reviewed. Maybe there is not a lot that needs to be updated. Hopefully, it could be very quick. I know the estate planning attorneys that we work with close to us in this area will determine what their fee is based on the complexity of what they are doing as well. So simply updating it for your state's laws would hopefully come in a little bit less than doing a full plan. So, but yeah, that's a great point. Anytime you switch states, you definitely want to have it reviewed and redone.
Yeah, and I will agree with that, Sarah. Like doing an amendment to a trust is much cheaper. If your parents did estate planning docs 20 years ago, it's going to be very cheap to update those to current, to make updates. It's great. Love
Yeah.
that. And I will offer, just put that out there, that if you have questions about any of this, Sarah and I are very, very well versed in a lot of this. We're not estate planning attorneys, but this is something we literally deal with every day, and help walk clients through this stuff. So if you just need a pair of eyes on this or have quick questions, we're happy to help. Anything else you want to add there, Sarah?
Absolutely. We're happy to be a resource. My last comment was just if you are in the chat, please help me wish Janelle a happy birthday. Today is her birthday. She's offered to be here with us. So really, really grateful. I really appreciate it, Janelle, and happy birthday.
Thank you all so much. Hey, have such a good day. Thanks for joining us, folks. Take care.
Thank you.